Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, the guy who always forgets to put the thing, the current topic up. I haven't 100% decided which order I want to do everything in today yet, so that's part of the problem. We'll do our pre-ramble, of course. We'll talk about this next. There we go. Boop. How is everyone doing this fine Tuesday? Oh wait, Thursday. Eighth day? It's sometime in the week, I know. Croatia must be crushed! Wait, actually, hang on, I'm cool with Croatia, aren't I? Never mind, Croatia's cool! Croatia is cool! We are cool, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm a little bit sleepy too. I woke up about 20 minutes ago, which is late for me, for those of you not aware. But I was really cramming some episodes last night, and then I hung out with PAX, and then I passed out. I will not be streaming for the rest of today, by the way, just to let you guys know. I'm still working on YouTube stuff. I am about a third of the way there, though, because I have finished all of the, so I've got the Monday stuff, the Tuesday stuff, and the Friday stuff. So each one of those is a third of the work. So that's the third I finished. I still need to work on the Friday stuff. That's actually what I'm going to be doing next. And so I'm just going to be absolutely smashing out several ruminations this coming week. This week only, because then after that I'm going to be watching my amazing and wonderful niece and will not be getting any work done at all. So, let's see here. What does that mean? Let's look at the calendar, shall we, while we're thinking about it. I know we're going to be covering Fable, because that's the very next thing I'm looking at. Yep, Fable, Jade Empire, which I haven't played Jade Empire since it came out. Red Dead Redemption, Max Payne, Sleeping Dogs, Last of Us, Star Siege Tribes. I haven't finished filling this out. Where's my pen? So Star Siege Tribes, I can talk. Oh, Monkey Island, that's going to be next. So Monkey Island. And then after Monkey Island will be Age of Mythology. That'll be fun. And then, I have no idea, Snicker Friend. I don't have a car seat, so I can't take her anywhere. So I am limited to here and the park, which is like right over there, which is really frustrating actually, because I can't take her anywhere. I keep working on that teleporter, I swear. So I can like take her to Disneyland or whatever. She's actually been wanting to go to Disneyland for a while now. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. And then Soul Reaver 2. And after that will be System Shock 2. After System Shock 2 will be Goetia. Whatever the hell that is. There are other problems related, Mikes. And finally, Shadowrun Dragonfall. That'll be... Oh god, no, that won't be. Oh, Jesus Christ. You're not going to see me on stream for a while at this rate. Holy crap. And then after Shadowrun Dragonfall, since we're still going, we'll have Shadowrun Hong Kong. And then Torment Tides of Numenera, which I haven't actually played yet. I'm not even sure if I own it yet. Numenera. Let's make sure we're spelling that correctly. And then some game nobody's ever heard of called Chrono Trigger. And finally, Zelda Breath of the Wild. That will be the last one for this bundle. Okay, so that is the mound of work I have to pile drive through. Oh my god. Okay. Damn it, Hazardous, stop being super blood. Oh, that's all for ruminations, of course. That's all for the YouTube side of things. So, Where's my other notes? Here we go. Alright. How many of you have watched a kid's cartoon show since you were an adult and actually enjoyed it? The definitions here can be stretched, obviously.
Zug zug.
I've heard some people say that Batman the Animated Series was a kid's TV show. Not sure I agree, but you could say that. I didn't know Barbie had movies. Rewatching you want grown up only if you enjoy them. What the hell is Steven Universe? I'm kidding. I know what Steven Universe is, but I've yet to see it. No, so my niece, this is actually a couple weeks ago, but it was a topic that was just kind of bouncing around in the back of my brain, and then I saw another topic this week, which I wanted to talk about. And I was like, oh, hey, you know, that kind of connects to that TV show thing. So she was watching a show called Lost in Oz. How many of you have even heard of this? I gotta wait a minute. To be clear, there's actually two things called Lost in Oz. This is not the books, and this isn't the failed attempt at a live-action TV show. This is the CGI cartoon show. Came out in 2015, and just recently finished its second season like a couple months ago. I just realized I should move the chat over here so I'm not tilting my head quite as badly. As weird as this is going to sound, this show is really good. So again, a couple weeks ago, I was going up to take care of my niece. You know, it's like, all right, I've done my morning stuff. Her parents were heading out, so it's like, all right, I'm going upstairs. I'll take care of her. And she was watching this show, and I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. So I start working together, getting lunch ready, blah, blah, blah. And she's still watching it. I go over, I watch it, I'm like, huh. And there's some weird things about the show I wanted to share with you. First of all, it is a string continuity show. Now, for those of you who don't know what I mean by that, each episode leads directly into the next episode, leads directly into the next episode. It is more, I think, string continuity is my terminology. Thank you, Beaver. But I hear it referred to as story arcs. It's all about story arcs, right? Season 3 of Enterprise is a good example of this. Some of Babylon 5 is a good example of this. So each episode literally ends in a, oh gosh, you know, what's going to happen here? Or, I wonder why this is that way, or, oh, I wonder what this is. And then the next episode, exactly, the next episode starts right after the last episode. There we go. Right after the last episode concludes. And it's not just an everyday kind of a thing. It's all part of story arcs. There's actually been 2 story arcs. One for Season 1 and one for Season 2. And I was like, huh. That's kind of weird. Then I noticed the fact that they do this thing where they really pay attention to which characters show up when, and have them show up again when they should. In other words, actually keeping track of continuity properly, to the point where if someone like is a major character for some particular reason early on, they show up again later on, and it's like, hey, we're still here in this specific way. Again, I'm not going to bore you with details, but like everything about the way that the magic works in the setting, or the brick guy, or the gnomes, N-O-M-E-S, that kind of a thing. And I was like, huh, okay. Then there was the fact that the show wasn't written for someone who was 5. In other words, for the bits I saw, and I've only seen a total of about 4 episodes, none of it was written as if you, the viewer, are an idiot. They do exposit rather heavily, as basically every kid's show does, but they never say, I wonder if my best friend here who is acting strangely has been mind-controlled. Nah, let's just act like nothing's wrong, and then we'll spend the whole episode having comical misunderstandings, and then, oh, it turns out that they're actually, And this is all prefaced from my real point. But first of all, let me just say, I know this is going to sound weird, I recommend you at least look into this show. Lost in Oz, it's on Amazon. I get it for free as part of Amazon Prime. All 2 seasons so far to date are on it. I don't know if they're going to continue it. Season 2 ended rather definitively, but then again, so did Season 1. Like I said, arcs. So I don't know. Anyways, but I bring this up because this is just so indicative of how much television has changed in the last 20 years. Or 30 years, actually. When I was growing up, and when I was studying television, and when I was working in television, in a local fashion, of course, but, you know, I did a lot of research into television production when I was working at a television station, because that's kind of the person I am. Television didn't work that way. TV in general was a completely different animal than it is nowadays. The idea of someone, like, let's just take just one thing I just talked about. Let's take that string continuity thing. The very idea of someone doing a string continuity show was laughable. As you guys will hear, or are already aware of, in TNG, there were a lot of pushes for more continuity and more string continuity in Star Trek The Next Generation, in Season 2 and in Season 3. All of those pushes were rebuffed because that was stupid! Why in God's name would you want actual string continuity, or would you want story arcs in television? People thought that was just insane that someone would actually suggest that. Because the predominant theory at the time was the only people who watched television did so to watch an episode, not a story. And that was the predominant theory. Whether that theory is true or not, that's debatable. I'm not willing to get into that. But if you ever wondered why there's the love interest of the week, why there's the enemy of the week, why there's the threat of the week, you know, the whole blank of the week concept, it's because the predominant mindset, mentality, philosophy when it came to television was the very idea that you sat down and watched an episode, not a string of episodes. And of course, we can easily track exactly how this kind of thing changed over time. We could see how the rise of VCRs was probably the first real thing that changed this concept. And of course, releasing boxed set on VHS, that didn't start being a thing until the mid-90s, like as a concept. Or how about the idea of being able to binge watch something by grabbing a DVD section and so forth and so on, right? In other words, over time, it became more accessible for the audience to be able to watch a series rather than an episode. Hi, Seldir. Turn that down just a little bit. There we go. You are absolutely right, Blue Wolf Alex. For those of you not aware, Doctor Who, even back in the day, had arcs. Usually, God, I want to say 6 to 9 episode arcs. And that 6 to 9 episodes was basically an episode. You know, I know that sounds weird, but you get my point. That was one arc, one story arc. And usually there would be some kind of segue between this one and the next one, and there would be a story arc and so forth and so on.
Of course you follow me. They all do.
It has been argued, and I don't know if this is true, that that's one of the reasons Doctor Who took hold. That it was why, thank you very much, Jason Bauer. That it's been argued that that's one of the reasons why Jason Bauer, why Doctor Who became such a big thing. Jot this down on AC Odyssey right here. Burn Notice is a far more recent example. That's why I use Doctor Who, because Doctor Who was doing this back in the 60s, when it was legitimately insane to do something like that, when Doctor Who was one of the only shows doing that. Even as recently as the 90s, shows were still like, you know. Anyways, so that brings me to the other thing, though. One of the things I've noticed, thanks to my niece, is that there is a weirdly larger number of kids shows which don't treat you like you're a moron. Now, I've decided after some thought not to name names. I've decided not to actually say such and such show, but there are certain kid shows which treat you like you're a goddamn moron, and it actually irritates me. Now, granted, I am an adult, but speaking as someone who is effectively being a parent, you know, someone who's being a caretaker for a child, no, I'm not naming anything. I find certain kids' TV shows to be insulting and not good for her to watch. I don't mind, like, not everything doesn't have to be. I don't know who that guy is out there. Don't worry, he won't be streaming all day. Seriously, I got YouTube work to work on. But yeah, I look at it, it's like, really? Really? Like, there's nothing wrong with just sitting and watching a show. Really, no judgment here. I know plenty of people who like just sitting down and turning off their brain and enjoying some television. No judgment intended here. But for a kid, especially a developing kid, I would prefer it if they can be entertaining while engaging their brain, not entertaining while turning off their brain. And that's why, my sister and I and several other people have all had, discussions about what exactly we find to be acceptable for her to watch. Because you have to think about that sort of thing, right? And that again brings me back to Lost in Oz, which I find to be completely acceptable for her to watch because it is an intelligence show which has strong emphasis on continuity, which I'll get to in a second, and has, doesn't treat her like she's a moron. Now, yeah, no kidding, Fireball Monabe. Now, I also want to mention something in addendum to that. Like I said, the continuity thing. I know I'm really big on continuity. Like, anybody who knows anything about me knows I'm really, really big on continuity. But I personally believe that having continuity, really setting continuity, helps a child to understand and grow, because it's all about consequence and context. If they see such and such, this guy, and then this guy does these bad things, and then, 2 episodes later, this guy shows up again, that kid should be able to identify, oh, that's a bad guy. I know that's a very basic example, but you get my point. That's someone who does this such and such, and they did this back then. It helps them, my opinion, of course, it helps them to be able to say, aha, that point connects here, and this had a consequence here. It doesn't just get swept under the rug for next week. It still has effects later on, so they start to learn things like consequence. My opinion. It's one of the reasons I was okay with her watching My Little Pony, because My Little Pony is actually very big on continuity. So, just something I kind of wanted to bring up. Now, Rax actually brings up another interesting point there. There's the animated / kids thing that has been being filled with fear over the years. Thank you very, very much, Zed Slayer. Welcome to the 13-month club. Welcome to the Baker's Dozen. The Lore's Dozen? There's the idea that has been dying, and it should be. There's been the idea that's been dying that animated or CGI is just for kids. And that idea should die out, because it is my personal opinion that an animated feature or a CGI feature is just another medium. That's what I think. Now, we know why animated features used to be the things you did for kids' shows. It was because they were cheaper and easier to do than bringing people in. That can arguably still be said to be true. Ah! Which is, of course, filled with animated fear. Thank you very, very much, Larry, and welcome to the Baker's Dozen. I'm just going to start saying that for the 13-month people. Thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah, I agree, Blue Wolf Alex. I absolutely agree. The mindset has been dying since the 90s. I do remember when I used to be made fun of in about 02, 04, something like that, for watching the DCAU, for example. And I was like, really? Have you not seen the DCAU? Ah! What the hell? Jeez, I'm just filled with tons and tons of Baker's Dozen fears here. Holy crap. Excuse me. God, I'm drying up with all this fear here. Oh my goodness. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Rax. Record some lines. Thank you. Yeah, Batman Beyond, the Justice League Unlimited, right? They had a second Justice League. I can't even remember what they called it. Maybe that was Unlimited. I'm just getting the name screwed up. I don't know. One of these days I keep planning to sit down and just watch all the DCAU again. It's also funny because anime, especially CGI, TMNT didn't get continuity until later. The old TMNT, the 80s and 90s cartoon, had like no real continuity whatsoever. And then there was the 90s cartoon show, which I'm just going to call it that. It was the 90s one. Okay, so it was regular and then unlimited. Sorry, got the order confused there. But the 90s one was significantly stronger about continuity. And then there was the CGI one, and then there was the second CGI one. But anyways, getting off the point. Point being, yeah, that's the one I'm talking about, Hazardous, the second cartoon one. The X-Men cartoon show, anyone remember that one? That was also 90s. That would have been like 91, 92, 93, somewhere around there. That show did have continuity, but only in a bubble. What that show was doing was story arcs. And it would be like, here's the Magneto story arc, and everything within that bubble was contiguous, and then they would kind of throw that out the window. And then it would be, here's the first Apocalypse arc, and here's the Dark Phoenix arc, and here's the Sinister and the Savage Land arc, and so forth and so on. So they did stuff with that. Anyways, getting back to my point. Clone Wars was an interesting bump in the road on this whole path, I think. How many of you remember when Clone Wars came out? I mean, I obviously should raise my hand on this one because it was making... for those of you who remember, it was a hell of a stir when they were pushing out Clone Wars. When it was first coming out. Because the first thing they did was they put out the CGI. If I refer to Clone Wars, I guarantee you 99% of the time I'm talking about the CGI show. The anime show was a completely separate thing. So, how many of you remember when the Clone Wars, you got it, came out? Yeah, so it made a hell of a stir, and there's two big reasons why. So first, when people were first saying, oh, we're going to go ahead and produce a Clone Wars CGI show, response was mixed. Some people were like, yeah, okay. And some people were like, it's going to be kind of a kid's show because it's CGI. And some people were like, And so there was a lot of a mixed response. And then the intro film came out on the theater. And the intro film was bad. No offense to anyone who likes that. No offense to anyone who liked that. But it did not work out very well. And this was, I remind you, in an era when the prequels were still kind of fresh in everyone's mind, and we were still in that dip of acceptability when it came to the prequels. Yes, the Hutt Jr. movie. That's the one I'm talking about. I will have to personally disagree with you on that, Anthony. And the biggest reason why, other than the fact that I despise the movie, my opinion is that the movie's garbage. But that's just my opinion. Regardless of opinion, I still think it didn't work as an intro movie because it damaged the franchise. Or rather, it damaged the show. Lots of people, both publicly and in geek circles, watched the movie and were like, okay, that's crap, and walked away from it, and therefore didn't give the show a chance. It probably didn't actually help that a lot of people who actually decided to stick around to watch the show watched the first few episodes of the show, which were not great. Now, I'm one of those people who defends the Clone Wars. The CGI show, right? You got it. Because I actually feel like they did some legitimately awesome stuff. Not just good. Not merely good. They did some great and awesome stuff with the show. And then there was the Drek. Gotta acknowledge the Drek, right? We have to acknowledge the good with the bad. But I know so many people who didn't actually bother with the Clone Wars because of the movie and because of those first few episodes, and it was just like, ugh. And yeah, Ahsoka's a great example of this. How many of you liked Ahsoka when she first showed up? Honest question. I will not raise my hand. I thought she was irritating and stupid in the movie. I agree, Anthony. Bonus question: How many of the characters in the show? How many of you who have actually watched the Clone Wars would put Ahsoka towards the top of your list of favorite characters on the show? Right? You see where I'm going with this. This was one of those kind of moments. Because Ahsoka was awesome once she became a character. In fact, I was one of those people who was really jazzed when, stuff happened later on. I'll try not to spoil this. Well, okay, Mike's just said it in chat, so there you go. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's a very typical thing, and it's one of the reasons I try so hard not to be judgmental about things like Star Trek Discovery, which, for those of you who haven't heard my opinion on it, didn't catch me. It's like, okay, Discovery Season 1. I have no plans to ever watch that again. I see no purpose in even bothering. But, yeah, exactly. Early TNG, as everyone says. Early Enterprise is actually my favorite example of that. I love Enterprise Season 3 and Season 4. I do legitimately love Enterprise Season 3 and Season 4. I have never successfully rewatched Season 1 and 2 of Enterprise. I've tried. I have tried to go back and sit through it, and I get maybe 5 or 10 minutes in, and I'm just like, yeah, skip. God, no, skip. All right, next episode. I couldn't do it. I hated it so much. So, yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Hey, I'm one of those people who actually likes a decent amount of Season 1 TNG. I don't like this guy, though. He doesn't know how to dance. Oh my god, who just donated? That was... Okay, Valerian, you're awesome? Really? Really, you are. Please stop donating when I've openly said I won't be able to stream properly for the next, like, month. Thank you, Emperor Valerian. Thank you so much. For those of you who know where his comment flat out says, you're not going to be doing anything for the next 3 weeks, so put this towards the bank, because I'll be watching my niece, so... Oh my god! The nerd factor is filling me with fear. See, that's, you know me, Anthony, or at least I think you know me, Anthony. I have further levels below trash. There's a reason I have that whole concept of a lamentation. Thank you very, very much, Nerd Factor. As ever, those Twitch Prime subs are very appreciated and help me keep going and help me take care of my niece and take basically a 3-week sabbatical in order to watch my niece. Thank you. Well, welcome to my stream. This is Loreweek. This is just when we chat about stuff, so you are more than welcome to chat or talk or discuss or hate or whatever it is you want to do. Within reason. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting way off topic here as we just continue talking about discussion and television. My point is, that is not going to be a vacation. I'm going to be dead on my feet that whole week, Micromono. Are you kidding me? I'm going to be taking care of a 5-year-old. I do not have that kind of energy. This is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be wonderful, but oh god, every day I'm just going to be like... No, the main reason I'm watching her is because she will be doing a off-site college thing for those weeks. That's the main reason I'll be watching her, like, full-time for that whole period. What's my next topic? Oh, of course I'll have fun. I said something a few years ago when I first started taking care of my niece full-time. And it was that taking care of a child like that full-time, morning, noon, making sure she eats, making sure she go to the bathroom, making sure to take care of her when she's sick, and all the good and all the bad, is one of the most tiring and stressful and injuring and horribly wonderful things I've ever done in my life. It is amazingly satisfying and heartwarming and awesome. But anyone who looks at that and says that that's all good without bad is an idiot. No, that's not how that works. It is a lot of work. A lot of good work. How many of you heard of this game that I'm typing up here at the top before I start talking about it? Battle Princess Madelyn. How many of you have heard of that? Sorry. Zozo Music, what do you want from me? This is a game that's been in Kickstarter for a bit and is actually coming out, I believe, this year. this is a game. This is a game. You know, appropriate timing, right? That is being made by a gentleman by his daughter, who was 7 at the time. Now, that sounds like a weird statement. Why does this keep skipping? I may have to start changing my background. This file keeps skipping on me. I don't know why. Anyways, listen, I'm just saying. Okay, so what happened is he was playing Ghosts and Goblins, or Ghouls and Goblins, or what the hell it's called. You know, SNES game, right? Also a NES game. And she was apparently upset about the fact that she couldn't be a knight. Now, apparently her kids in her school had been bullying her about the fact that she liked to play sword battles and whatnot at school, because girls can't be knights. And so her dad decided to start making basically a fan patch of Ghosts and Goblins, which kind of developed and developed until it got to the point where he just started making his own video game. It's a side-scroller action game in the style of Ghosts and Goblins. And she is the creative lead. His daughter, who is currently 7, has for the past, I think, year and a half now, been the creative lead of this game. So she will draw stuff, and he will make it into the game, and she will say, well, this needs to be this, and he will make it in the game, and so forth and so on. Sorry. Let's skip past this part. There we go. It is a game called Battle Princess Madelyn. I suggest you look into this. But what I really like about it is the idea of the nature of how different it is nowadays than it used to be. Like, I know that sounds like a weird thing, and this kind of ties into what I mentioned earlier about the television kids show, but if you rewound time back to the NES era, I almost guarantee you that people would be like, what? You want me to take game design notes and story design notes from my kid? You're stupid. Now, I don't actually know if that actually happened. I have no idea. I have no information on that. But I do love the concept of being able to channel that kind of creativity of a child into something like that. That's awesome. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my niece, to continue this thread here going, has been, you know, Mini Z has been like, oh, okay, so this is going here, and this story, I mean, okay, let me give you a direct example. While SGDQ was going on 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, I was watching her the whole week for SGDQ, by coincidence. And so we were watching the Castlevania block, and she just kind of wrote this whole contiguous story that connected all of the Castlevania games together. Seriously. And it was something... Axe Cop. I don't think I've heard of that. Wait, no, I have heard of that. I have heard. God, I haven't thought about that in a long time. There was so she made this whole story that connected the Castlevanias together in a way that made sense. You know, that whole continuity thing I mentioned earlier. And it was this big story. It was basically the swamp people were like one side of a faction, and then there was everyone else. And anytime, like, because I don't know if you've ever played the Castlevania games, but there's a lot of the castle is crumbling stages, and there's a lot of rocks falling stages, and all of that was stuff that they were doing to attack the swamp people down below. And so the guy who was playing through the stage was like, oh god, I've got to stop the people from breaking all this stuff. We have to save the swamp people. And then every now and then he'd go down to the swamp people, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You're attacking us with rocks. And she would come up with this story that the swamp people, which is the little, you know, the down below level, you know what I'm talking about, when you go down and then there's like, here's the swamp and you have to jump through and they jump up and shoot at you. They would attack Mini-Z because of the fact that they didn't know. They thought he was just another one of the people up top. Like, he was just, oh my god, I'm going to... it's one of them, it's one of the enemy, it's one of the land dwellers, take him out. You know. And of course, they were so... You could tell that the people up top were the bad guys. You know why? Because they would actually rip out their own bones to throw at people. For those of you not aware, several of the skeleton enemies from about stage 3 and onward, they fling like boomerang sort of... Or not boomerang, axe arcing bones of people. you know. It was this whole fanfic, basically, that she designed for the whole thing. She also played Legend of Zelda while we were watching Legend of Zelda. That was absolutely adorable. I even recorded that. Not for you guys, no offense. That's actually for, the future. But
your dedication will be rewarded.
But your dedication will be rewarded. It was this wonderful whole thing. And I love the idea of tapping into that creativity. And I also love the idea because I tend to think in terms of the long term. And so I wonder what, for example, Madelyn, or whatever her real name is going to be thinking. Okay, thank you very, very much, Blue Wolf Alex. I will definitely put that towards Fire Emblem. I don't remember the name. 3 Houses, that's it. So this is... there we go. Thank you, Blue Wolf Alex. She can write, but she's at the point where it takes her several seconds to write a word. That's the pace of her writing, but she can write. And she can read if she takes a moment. So, anyways, but I love this idea of tapping into this creativity. Oh, right, and the future, right? You look into the future and imagine what, for example, Madelyn is going to be thinking 10, 20 years from now, when she looks back and sees this game that she designed when she was a kid, right? Did I say type or write? It almost doesn't matter because she actually can type. She has the ability to sit down. We have a program where it's like, type out these letters, and she looks at very carefully for a moment at the keyboard, and then she's, okay, these letters, and she can type them, and she does really well at it, like surprisingly well at it. I remember when I learned to type, excuse me. I actually, believe it or not, I took a class in typing. How many of you are old enough to remember that? When typing was a class because it was still a relatively unknown skill. Yeah, anyways. But my point is, I didn't learn how to type until, God, that would have been 4th grade, I think, would be when that happened. 4th or 5th. I'm not sure which. It was one of those two, because I was at the same school for both grades. I remember being crap at typing, which I find hysterical looking back at it. My typing speed is insane nowadays, especially if I'm on a proper mechanical keyboard, which this is not. This is a comfortable keyboard. But if I need to just ram something out, I actually have a mechanical, which I'll plug in and just... But yeah, so she's already learning how to type because that's the modern age, right? I mean, typing is probably more of a thing than writing is at this point in time. Anyways, we're getting way off topic. You should look into this game. It actually looks pretty neat. I would love to do a premiere run of it when it comes out. Battle Princess Madelyn. For no other reason than the fact that I want to see what comes of it. I want to see how it works out. So I just wanted to mention that and talk about how awesome creativity is and how awesome kids are. Moving on. Who wants to talk about net neutrality? That's a fun topic, right? Everyone likes net neutrality. Part of the reason I type weird here, for those of you wondering, is I've actually got these on my desk in order to help with the sound. I put these right under the mic, and it helps to catch some of that bounce off of the desk there. There we go. So in case you're ever wondering why I'm weird to type when I'm doing something like for Loreweek, it's because I'm basically typing around these little foam mats here. There we go. How many of you don't have to tell me that. Never mind, that's a dumb question. California is currently pushing together a bill to reinstate and reinforce net neutrality in California. I have looked at the specifics and particulars of the bill. I've decided not to bore you with that. It basically boils down to 2 major points. ISPs cannot charge more for better service. And what I mean by that is they can't charge more for a fast lane service, and they cannot throttle based on not paying for that service. In other words, it's trying to reestablish a form of net neutrality. There's actually other points to the bill. Here's the thing. For those of you not aware, the FCC ruled already that the federal ruling on the net neutrality situation that the FCC put forth, which went into effect a month ago now, supersedes state rights. Now, for those of you not aware who don't live in the United States, an enormously large number of rules and laws actually vary based on states here in the States. There are federal laws, of course, but you'd be surprised how much of the minority those are in. And in some cases, there's actually not federal law so much as federal enforcement. Highways is a wonderful example of this. So this is an attempt by California to push this through and say, all right, look, we're going to reestablish net neutrality in California. There has been a lot of back and forth on this. This has been going on for a couple months now, and I've been kind of idly following this because I still have family who lives in California, and because I've been following net neutrality in general. And several senators have... several senators, listen to me. The two senators in California and several of the representatives in California have basically united until they get to this point where it's like, all right, we all want this same thing. We all want to push forth this same idea because we think this net neutrality thing is going to be bad. And it's funny to me because one of them... This is all, of course, stated intent. So who knows what these people actually think? These are politicians. They're probably lying to their teeth. But the stated intent of one is well, we want to protect people's, freedom and financial security. And the stated intent of the other is, well, we want to ensure a fair and just business practice so we can have more economic growth. And yet, despite these basic two completely separate reasons, they still both agree that net neutrality needs to be reinstated. I find that funny, personally. Again, it's probably all hoopla, but, Anyway, so they're pushing this through. In August 6th, I want to say. Forgive me for not writing down the date. They're actually going to go ahead and push this into session and write this into law. At which point, well, we're not sure what's going to happen next. And that's the real thing I wanted to talk about. Because, for those of you not aware, law in the United States is a very malleable thing. Hello, Sylvan. There are very, very few things that are concrete law in the United States. In fact, maybe like 24, maybe, things that are actually concrete law in the United States. Everything is malleable. Everything is debatable. Everything needs to be established in a court of law. And even if it is established in a court of law, that does not necessarily make it true. It just makes it true for that circumstance. I've talked about this before. The amount of things that have to do for something to be true legal precedent is actually pretty significant. So, having said that, there are whispers and movements that several ISPs, including Comcast, and the big one, AT&T, are actually making efforts and preparing right now to sue the government of California. Because the idea here is this legal thing I mentioned with the net neutrality thing, this is going to go through. Like, the odds of this not going through at this point are very low. The only reason it's not going through right now is because they're not in session right now. They'll be in session in early August, as I mentioned earlier. So the idea is, they'll get together, they'll vote this through, and then AT&T and possibly Comcast. AT&T's the big one. So I'm just going to keep saying AT&T. AT&T is going to be like, hey, we find you in violation of blah, blah, blah. And then this is going to turn into a wonderful, extensive legal battle that'll probably take the better part of a year or 3. That's why I call this the wah, because that's what we're seeing here. This is more or less the beginning of the war I actually referenced several months ago. How many of you remember that? You remember when this whole net neutrality thing was going and some people were like, oh my god, we lost the battle. And I was like, no, the war hasn't begun yet. You remember me saying that? The war is now beginning. This is when we're actually getting to the part where governments and personal interest groups and corporations are starting to actually fight over this issue in a more large-scale sense. That's where we're going right now. I know, right, Sylvan? Isn't that a great idea? Let's toss all this money in a legal endeavor. We'll see what happens. What will most likely happen... Well, I shouldn't say that, actually. The current state, as of this exact moment in time, net neutrality is not a thing, Savacom. So right now, Comcast, and I'll use them as an example because they've already done this to me twice. Comcast could actually sit down and say, hey, listen, so we're going to charge you more for your internet. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you want really good internet, like if you want to still be able to watch Netflix on your internet, or you still want to be able to use this ISP on your internet, we're going to charge them more. And that means they will charge you more. That's why I say this has hit me twice. Because I'm being charged more by Comcast, and the host that I use for my website is charging me more because they are being charged more by Comcast. This has already happened. That is currently legal. It didn't used to be. So that's probably the simplest and most blunt way I could say net neutrality is currently. We haven't seen any of the wild speculation of how bad it could get happen yet. Thank God. If I could just say that as bluntly as I can, because at the moment, this could get really, really bad with the way things are legally right now. It would be totally viable right now, for example, for Comcast to say, all right, we're going to provide good internet to these neighborhoods, the rich neighborhoods, and we're going to provide crap internet to the other neighborhoods. Now, you might say, well, isn't that how it already is? Well, actually, no. In most states, because this is usually a state-based thing, if a ISP is providing, there's basically like a floor that they can't go below in terms of service. So even if you live, it's one of the weird things about living in the United States. Even if you live in this dump apartment in the middle of whatever, you could still have reasonably good cable internet because of the way that used to work. That is no longer true. With the way things are working right now, they don't have to hit that. They don't have to address that floor. And as Blackfell points out, they could just remove service entirely if they find it to be non-financially feasible for whatever reason. So that is something that could happen, isn't happening, but could happen. I have no idea, Batman, because I don't live in that city. I have one ISP in the entire region I'm in. That's Comcast. It is my only option. That's actually not true. There's also Google Fiber, but Google Fiber is very, like, this neighborhood and this neighborhood and this neighborhood. So there's two ISPs around here. Google Fiber and Comcast. It varies. Hazardous is the answer to that question. Our internet infrastructure is all over the place. And I absolutely agree. I think this will, theoretically, because again, it hasn't happened yet, but theoretically this would hurt rural areas by far the most. So, Fireball Manabe is bringing up the fact that at one point in time, this is several years ago, the states put forth federal money into laying copper. That didn't happen. The money happened, but the laying copper didn't happen. I talked about this back when I was bringing up the first net neutrality thing and really going into the details. I did a whole Loreweek just about net neutrality. That didn't happen. They took all that money and took it and said, "Fear." Thank you very, very much, Shaludo. As ever, much appreciated and very grateful. Unlike some people, I appreciate every dollar you guys toss to me. Thank you. Now, it's also worth noting that I sometimes unfairly lump every ISP together. There's 5 primary ISPs that are the problem here. I don't even remember all of their names off the top of my head, but Comcast, AT&T, and I can't remember the others off the top of my head, are the big ones. There are plenty of other littler ISPs, especially satellite ISPs, which generally don't really have this problem, although legally they could be just as bad now, but, you know. Verizon, that's another one. Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and there's 2 more. I'm trying to find the list. No. Everything's horrible, oh my god! Do you hear that horribleness? Here we go. Perfect. Okay, Comcast. Charter. That's the one I can never think of the name of. Because Charter's, if I'm not mistaken, Charter's more West Coast. So I haven't had to deal with that for a while. But so it's Comcast, Charter, AT&T, Verizon. And then, you get into the smaller ones like CenturyLink and Cox when you go below that. AT&T stepped up a few notches after the recent merger, but yeah. Oh, I know, Hazardous. Anyways, point being... I still am grateful, Blue of Alex. I understand gratitude. Yeah, right here, like I said, I've got two options. Live in an area where Google Fiber is, or everywhere else is Comcast. That's it. It is a true monopoly where I'm at. I hope so, Andrew, because that'd be awesome. Where I used to live, I had three options, I want to say. Comcast, AT&T, and... some local company I can't even think of the name of, but those were the options there. And so it does vary. It varies based on where you live, which kind of goes back to what I talked about originally, isn't it? We here in the States are actually very variable based on the state we're in. It's not going to be the same, here versus there versus there. Yeah, California is fairly limited as well. I don't know what's going on in Texas right now. Once upon a time... Indiana was fairly limited as well, and I don't remember any other... Oh, Idaho was another one that was very restricted. That's a much more long-term question, Tessphere, because the biggest problem right now comes down to ownership of pipes. I actually have brought this up because it's related to the net neutrality issue. The problem is who exactly owns the pipes, who exactly owns the poles, and who exactly owns the rights to dig in or operate those is something that is a heavily debated topic and is being debated on a state-by-state basis. This is actually one of the bigger reasons why Google Fiber hasn't been rolled out in a larger manner, because they have to fight on a literal state-to-state basis, right? So that is a much more long-term kind of a topic. My biggest thing I could say, the starting ground for fixing this internet problem, classify it legally at a federal level as a utility. And if you don't know what that means, there's a whole set of jurisdictions and laws at the federal level for what a utility can and should do. And right now, the internet is not classified as a utility. This is one of the problems, in my opinion. This is one of the problems. Yes! What Emperor Valerian says here is also true. Some counties and some states have laws that say, nope, for undefined reasons. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of crap that we have to slog through before we get to the point where we can really start fixing this internet thing. And of course, we have to deal with a philosophical problem which is in the way. Now, this is not Halloween, so I'm not going to get too much into politics here. But so let's say we reclassify it as a utility, okay? Even if we did that, there's a chicken in the road. That's a terrible analogy. There's a troll. That's also a bad analogy. There's a Marauder 2C battle mech in the road. There we go. And that is the philosophical question of how much governance should be at the state level, and actually the county level, and how much governance should be at the national level, the federal level. That is a philosophical debate, a problem of your opinion, your political stance, your belief in how governance should work, your belief in how governance should work here, whether or not you personally have any stake in it. There are so many different people with so many different perspectives on that massive issue, and that issue is more or less directly in the path of trying to resolve the internet situation here in the States. Because right now what you're seeing is more a battle of that issue than about net neutrality itself. States insisting that they have the right to govern their own internet laws versus the FCC and their federal backers who say that that should be a federal law. And that's an issue, a huge issue that needs to be resolved. And probably never will be. Because that's an issue that's been going on for Centuries. Man, I love talking about that stuff. Isn't this great? How are you guys doing? How's everything doing this fine Thursday day? Heard of my cup. My cup's over there. Okay. I wanted to talk about something unrelated to this. Yeah, heat. Oh my god. Hot rain lately. Oh, that's another thing, Larry. And the other problem with this whole states versus federal thing. What Guild Wars 2 stuff? Honest question. All I've seen is that the latest patch thing went live, which I logged in and grabbed. All I knew about that hazardous, and I know that that was recently shot down again. What do we got? We got time for another topic. Oh, I only heard the most distant whispers about that, and frankly, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Yep, that's great. Moving on. Exactly hazardous. That's why I said that as vaguely and loosely as I possibly could. So, how many of you have heard of Warframe? It's a video game. It goes... Rough approximation. This is the exact music that plays during Warframe. The music that's playing right now is the actual soundtrack. This is a lie. Don't pay attention to that. I've actually been wanting to try Warframe for some time now, and I just haven't had time. Like, I have spent my entire last week working on Star Trek videos. I'll be spending this entire next week working on Friday Ruminations. And, yeah, zero time. But I've been wanting to try it out. It's apparently coming to Switch. I don't actually know about that. How many of you have seen the expansion thing that they're producing for it? Just curious. This is pretty recent. In fact, I think this is recent as of yesterday. Lie Runner. Hi, I'm the Lie Runner. How are you? No, yeah, so it was yesterday. Okay, it was actually yesterday. I know it was very recent, because I found out about it this morning. See you around, Suffolk, Tom. Enjoy the store trip. Yes, the TennoCon. So they released this thing. It's going to space. They're actually going to have space combat. DeGaulle says he was underwhelmed. I had the exact opposite reaction. It looks amazing. But the reason it looks amazing to me is because... and this is purely hypothetical because I haven't played Warframe yet, as I just prefaced, it looks like FTL from a individual perspective. How many of you have played FTL? I've played FTL on stream and gotten a lot of viewers killed. The idea is, rather than playing FTL, you're playing one of the people in FTL. You go into space, one person handles such and such, one person handles another such and such. You command the ship and you go start attacking the other ship. You can board the enemy ship. You can have like a commander mode, which starts to like take over aspects of the other ship. Fire this, you know, all that sort of thing. It's FTL. It's FTL except with Warframe. It looks really cool. I don't know how cool it is because I haven't played Warframe, but this is one of those on concept things. I'm with it. And it's made me want to try Warframe even more than I already wanted to try Warframe out. Yes, that's also not the only thing they're adding in the expansion. I saw a few details, but I didn't have context, so I didn't really know what they were talking about. They mentioned that there's some story being moved forward, and there's some guy whose name I've already forgotten, and he's involved. Again, I don't know Warframe, I haven't played it, but it did seem kind of neat. The thing that really struck me, though, and the main topic I actually wanted to bring up here, is the fact that there were several interviews which I caught transcripts of, and those interviews, they got across a feeling of, screw it, let's just try it. Now, we here, especially as consumers of fiction, probably look at that kind of topic and say, well, of course that's the right thing to do. You know, how many times has there been a fictional story about being too set in your ways and that causing bad things happen, right? It's a very common fictional story. The problem is that in real life, sometimes things are done for a reason. That, you know, tradition for tradition's sake is something I would personally feel to be bad, but tradition sometimes exists for a reason. Now, I bring this up when it comes to video games because saying screw it and just trying stuff with video games is actually very risky. It's one of the reasons why there are certain Nintendo products you barely ever hear of because they failed, right? Yeah, because Nintendo is one of the few companies out there that has consistently been willing to say screw it with regards to their development for some time. And yeah, breaking what works is also bad. That is very true. So, that being stated, I look at this and I like the idea in paper for the same reason that I like that Nintendo does it. Because for every 9 or so ridiculous failures Nintendo has, every now and again they have something like the Switch, which I'm willing to say was a phenomenal success, you know? And so I like the idea that whoever the developers are, I can't remember their names right now, please forgive me, of Warframe, are willing to just try stuff. Say, let's just do this, let's just do this, that's just stupid. And in fact, one of them actually flat out said he was told in the design documents for this new thing with the FTL mode especially, that this is one of the dumbest things they could do. This is going to be wasting time and development on something that's probably not going to work, and he just said, screw it. And yeah, from what Cloud of the Stars says, and from what I've heard before, this is not new. The Warframe devs are very, let's just try it, let's just experiment with it before. Now, I don't know how financially successful they are, I'm not aware of that. I don't know how well they're doing on a financial side, because I've never seen their business numbers, but I nevertheless find it intriguing that their base philosophy is, let's see what happens with this. Let's try this thing. So, we'll see. And yes, this is also a free-to-play game. That's another thing that is worth mentioning. This is a free-to-play game. Warframe, who was a friend of mine first mentioned Warframe to me. This is a while ago. And I looked at it and was like, oh, that looks cool, but kind of rough around the edges. And at the time, I was already going through, like, STO and WoW. And so I was like, nah, I'll try it later. And it came back to my attention from, of all sources, Jim Sterling, of all things. And he was mentioning how they do their business model. And I was like, huh? Okay. And I started looking into it a little bit more, and then I asked some of you guys about it, and I started looking into it a little bit more, and so forth and so on. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'm actually very curious about this. I'd love to do a stream of, like, a tryout, right? Like a blind run of Warframe, just to see what it is. Sometime next year when I have time to stream again. Don't worry, I'm not quitting streaming. I love streaming, and so from a personal perspective, I love streaming. From a creative perspective, there's a lot of things I love to do. And from a business perspective, I make a decent amount of money just from the streaming side of things. So don't worry, I'm not quitting streaming. I'm just trying to get some backlog going, and then I'm going to be dead for about 3 weeks. So just making that clear. Because I had a couple people say, oh no, don't quit streaming. No, I'm not. Don't worry. Anyways. I find Jim Sterling to be like the Clone Wars. No, seriously. Every now and again, Jim Sterling kind of nails it. And that's awesome. And then there's the Drek. That's my opinion. Ooh, that's a good idea, Halo. I also wanted to mention one other thing, though, because it just really quick about the Warframe thing again. Boglins. No, about the Warframe thing. Another thing I wanted to mention on that topic is I've actually seen other games that do that. The FTL, except you're playing an individual person kind of a thing. And Guns of Icarus is the one I keep bringing up because it's the one I've actually played. Anyone, I feel like I brought this up before. Anyone ever played Guns of Icarus? And Guns of Icarus was a game where I was like, oh, this is sweet. Oh, it's PvP only. Was pretty much exactly what went through my head when I tried it. I still played it for a bit with my friend Third, no, I didn't play it with Third. I wanted to play it with Third, and I didn't. I played it with Pax, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a great game in concept. There's nothing to it. It's just PvP. There's nothing there. There's no campaign mode. There's no meat. But it's a cool concept. I love that concept. I love that idea. And I'm actually a little bit weirded out that so few games have tried that particular concept, right? How few games are there that actually have you play a person on a ship? Like, we've got Bridge Simulator. I can't remember what it's called, but there's the original Bridge Simulator, and there's the Star Trek Bridge Simulator that came out more recently. Then there's Guns of Icarus. And then there's, apparently, Warframe is anything. I can't even think of anything else. I'm sure there's others. I can't even think of anything else. Anyone else got anything else? I don't know if I like this look. I'm trying the vest and coat suit. I'm not sure I like it. Ignoring the fact that I'm currently roasting alive. Oh yeah, Sea of Thieves, which also has no content. That's, wow, Fireball. I have never had that much of a brush with someone famous. I'm trying to think. I feel like there was another one. No, it's okay. It's okay, Saldir. I'm just slowly dying. Oh god. Oh god. No. Anyways, moving on. I do have one last topic here. I think I'm going to lose the jacket, though. I am dying in here. We're going into total casual mode. I call this the gangster mode. All right, let's do it. No, I'm kidding. No Yakuza here. Let's talk about... This is a topic that was suggested like 3 months ago. And we'll leave the next topic for next week. How many of you... Ooh, my stuff is here. Did they just leave it on the front door? They leave a picture now for deliveries. So I can actually pull up this picture and see where they delivered it. Yeah, it's just sitting there. I'm actually going to go grab that really quick because that's electronics and I don't want to sit it out in the 100-degree weather. I will be right back, guys. Hey, how are things? I'm a very clean casual, thank you very much. My room is actually very clean, although I've talked about that before. No, what I want to talk about is MMO subscription models. Like I said, this is something that was suggested a few months ago. And I usually keep topics that are timeless for whenever on Loreweek. That would be awesome, Zed. Like, how much time do we have left? I have... Ah! I have fear in order to do this. Thank you very, very much, Equalitus. And, hang on. Let me pull up Steam right now to answer your question. If you're talking about Soma, which is like last week, then yes. Oh, wow. I have tremendous fear of donations. I don't know how much time I have left. Whatever 54 minus 20 is, 34. I have 34 minutes left. So. This is actually a complicated topic. In fact, I probably should just save this for another day. What do you guys think? Should I just save this for another day? Because this is a whole topic. We can talk for like a half an hour about this one thing. What do you think? I'll let you decide. I could be playing my Switch right now. No, I'll be working on YouTube stuff today. I could also coin it, but my viewers know that there's an emote that allows them to say if they have interest in coining. Because I have another long-term topic I was going to bring up, excuse me, about leveling as a concept. Oh yeah, I meant to mention that also. I will be, so we're not doing a discussion on Ant-Man today. I'm going to try and make a point henceforth of listing discussions on the stream, on the schedule, on the website. Oh, I wanted to talk about that too, didn't I? Hang on, so... Quick timestamp here. What's the timestamp? God, 10900. Website. I am... So, in my amazing amount of spare time that I have been slowly transcribing my wiki onto my website. Now, it's not really live or available yet, and I still have to drop the $60 to actually unlock the add-on I'm using. I'm not 100% settled on it, but I wanted to ask you guys what you thought in concept of this add-on, to see if this is something you feel is something worth picking up. What I really want is just a wiki on my website, but unfortunately that's not really a thing. There are other ways of doing that that aren't great. So here, I'm going to link something here really quick. Boop. Now, this is a sneak peek of what it will roughly look like. There are... So what I want to do is I want to get rid of the sidebars on the wiki part of things. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, and failing miserably. I'm hoping to ask Third about that today, because I'll be seeing him, because I'll be seeing the movie later. And it is filling me with tremendous fear. Thank you, Javan. Welcome to the Baker's Dozen Club. And thank you very, very, very much. Javan's one of my only Tier 2 subs, you know that? So, ignore all the information there. Ignore all of that stuff. That's definitely not canon for the Imperium. But, that's the general way it would look. So at the top, you've got, like, the actual letters thing. Right now, there's only a C and an H because there's only two entries. The Concordat of Sentient Life and the Human Azimity Concordat. That's it. But if you, like, click the H, for example, you could see kind of like a way it will look. I need to add an image there. And then that will give, like, a little intro into what it looks like, and then you could click the thing. And, of course, I will have counterlinks throughout it, like you already see there with the Human Azimity Concordat, so you could click that and just bzzz over, and then that will have links. It'll function like a wiki, with tons of links within it, which leads to other things within it, so you can read it and browse the Imperium. That's the idea. I know what you're thinking. Why not just do this on a wiki? Well, you can't lock down a wiki. And I know this sounds weird. I've actually done some significant research into this. You're allowed, like, up to 15, I want to say, specific pages that you can lock down that no one can edit. If you try to lock down your entire site, you will actually get reported for being against the terms of service, because the entire point of a wiki is that everyone can edit it, and that's their stated goal. And so that's not what I want, because realistically speaking, no one will ever add information to this wiki other than me. But what I want is effectively a wiki in terms of its structure and format, right? Hence the idea of doing this. So what we got here is actually called Encyclopedia such and such. I don't even remember the name. It's here. I got it right here. This is called Encyclopedia Pro by Dennis Hop, apparently is the name of this thing. It's like $60 for a year, I want to say. Yep. And... Oh no, it's $50, excuse me. It's $50. There's a couple other ones I could look at. There's a knowledge base plugin, which looks completely differently, which I'm not sure I like the look of that, because it's a knowledge base, and that doesn't really fit for this kind of thing. Point being, this is something... I guess we'll get rid of this here, because that's not actually true. This is something that I've been trying to do in my incredibly huge amount of spare time, because this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and something that more and more people have been asking about over time. In fact, I was actually on a podcast interview just 2 days ago now, Friday evening, where people were like, hey, you know, and one of the things that was mentioned was the Imperium. We talked about Warcraft the whole time, because Warcraft is awesome, and I can talk about that without even trying to, but That'll be going... By the way, I'll be mentioning when that podcast goes live for anybody who cares. But yeah, I want to do more with the Imperium. It's my baby, right? It's my story that I've been writing for the better part of most of my life. I would like to make it more available, but a wiki just doesn't work because other people can edit it. And the thing is, like, you know, you could say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is no one else should be editing it. So you can edit it to, you know, because you're trying to be helpful, and I could look and be like, well, no. And you could edit it because you're a troll, or you could edit it because you're a bot, and none of that is acceptable, basically. I actually did a little bit of a test case with this already, because I actually do have a wiki that exists right now, and it has informed me when people have tried to you know, adjust it, and I can just go in and undo it. But that doesn't sound like something I want to do every day, does it? So I'm trying to find another solution to that. Anyways, I don't actually know what you're talking about, Hazard, if you don't mind elaborating a little bit more. I looked into that, Jovan, and at least with Wikia, which is what I was using, that is not acceptable. They do not allow that. Wait, what's this? What's this music? What's this glorious music? Anyways, sorry. Moving on. I have my own website. Website. The problem is getting it onto my website, which is the problem I've been running into. I have actually, for the record, I've already asked 2 web developers about this. This encyclopedia thing was one of their suggestions, not mine. Along with the knowledge base thing, which I'm not even going to try because I just don't like the way it looks and works. I mean, it's a knowledge base, but it's like a FAQ, you know, and I don't need a FAQ. It's also more money. I saw some of it, Sylvan. I fell asleep in the middle of the run, so I didn't actually get to see all of it. Either way, this is just something I've been working on. I wanted your kind of opinion on it. What was the other thing I was going to mention? So I'm going to be trying, speaking of the website, I'm going to be trying to put video discussions on streams that we do during Loreweek on the schedule, even though we always do Loreweek. I never put Loreweek on the schedule because it's every Sunday, with exceptions. But there's a pretty good chance that next Sunday we'll be discussing Ant-Man and Wasp, because I will be seeing it tonight. So, heads up on that one. I'll be seeing Ant-Man and Wasp tonight, we'll be talking about that next Sunday. And I guess that's all I got. I think I'm not going to talk about the MMO thing. I think I'm going to go ahead and get working on YouTube. The YouTube stuff. I hope I enjoy it too. I mean, I don't know. I'm not even sure who I'm going to see it with yet. I've bought 4 tickets. I may end up refunding 2 of them. We'll see. Oh, you mean like the collapsible contents thing? Oh, that's easy. Hazardous. I'm not sure what use that would have for me personally. What I actually want more is something like you ever see a thing where like there's the categories at the bottom, and it's like, here's all the such and such characters, and you can look at a list of characters, and then there's like a larger character. Here's all the stories and stuff like that. That's the real thing I want, which I have no idea how to do. I will have to figure that out at some point. It's one of the reasons I wanted to just do this on a wiki, because there's just a built-in editor in Wikia where it's just done, and you can just drop it in there and it's easy, but no, whatever. Anyways, sorry for rambling. So, that's all I got. I'm gonna go and chop off the local recording.